The red dust of Mars swirled around the dome of the research base. Inside, Dr. Alan Foster stared at the three-dimensional map hovering above the table. The strange geometric patterns beneath the Martian surface glowed blue against the red landscape. He had dreamed about these patterns his entire life, long before the satellites had found them. Now he was finally here, about to see them in person. "You've been looking at that map for 3 hours straight," said Captain Susan Wright as she entered the room. Her uniform was crisp despite the ever-present dust. "The team is ready whenever you are." Alan nodded but didn't look up. "I keep feeling like I'm missing something. These formations aren't random, they're calling to us." Susan frowned. "That's not very scientific, Doctor." "Maybe not," Alan admitted. "But I've had dreams about this place since I was a child." "Exact dreams, Susan. How do you explain that?" Before she could answer, the door slid open and Dr. Laura Peterson rushed in. Her eyes were wide with excitement. "The new scans are back. You need to see this." The map changed as Laura loaded the new data. The pattern shifted, forming what looked like a massive chamber deep below the surface. "That wasn't there yesterday," Susan said, leaning closer. "It was," Laura replied. "We just couldn't see it. It's revealing itself to us." Alan felt a chill run through him. "We need to go down there. Now." Hours later, the exploration team stood at the entrance to a tunnel that hadn't existed a week ago. The Martian rock had seemingly reshaped itself, forming a perfect corridor leading down. "This defies all geological understanding," said Kyle Bennett, the team's engineer. He ran his hand along the smooth wall. "No tool marks, no signs of erosion. It's like the rock just decided to move aside." Dr. William Carter studied the strange symbols carved into the entrance. "These markings, they're unlike anything in our records. Not Martian, as we understand it. They're older, much older." "Can you read any of it?" Alan asked. William traced a finger over one symbol that looked like a spiral with eyes. "This appears over and over. I think it might be a warning." Susan checked her weapon. "All the more reason to be careful. Standard formation. No one touches anything without clearance." The team descended into the tunnel. Their lights cast long shadows on the walls, which seemed to shift when no one was looking directly at them. The air grew colder the deeper they went, which was impossible on Mars. "The readings don't make sense," Laura said, checking her instruments. "According to this, the space ahead is bigger than it should be. Bigger than the hill we're under." "That's impossible," Kyle replied. "So is this tunnel," she reminded him. After walking for what felt like hours, they reached a vast chamber. Their lights couldn't reach the ceiling or the far walls. In the center stood a structure that defied explanation. It was both organic and mechanical, with parts that seemed to breathe while others remained rigid like metal or stone. "What is it?" Susan whispered. "I think." Alan stepped forward, drawn to the structure. "I think it's alive." Or was. As they approached, they saw that the structure was wrapped around something else, something massive and dark, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Careful," William warned, studying more symbols on the floor. "These markings form a boundary. I think they're containing something." Laura's scanner beeped loudly. "I'm detecting organic material and energy patterns I can't identify." Alan felt a pull toward the center, the same pull he'd felt in his dreams. "It's a prison," he said, suddenly certain. "This whole structure is a prison for something ancient, something that was here long before Mars had a name." Kyle set up scanning equipment around the chamber. "Whatever it is, it's been here for millions of years, maybe billions." The team worked carefully, documenting everything. William focused on translating the symbols, while Laura collected biological samples from the strange growth patterns on the walls. As Kyle activated his deep scanning equipment, a low hum filled the chamber. The team froze. "Turn it off," Susan ordered. "I can't," Kyle said, panic in his voice. "It's not responding." The dark shape in the center of the chamber shifted slightly. Just a small movement, barely visible, but everyone saw it. "We need to leave." William said urgently. Now, the symbols. I've figured out part of the message. It says the sleeper must not wake. Pack up, Susan commanded. We're pulling out. As they gathered their equipment, Alan couldn't tear his eyes from the center of the chamber. In his mind, he heard a voice. Not words exactly, but feelings, images, memories that weren't his own. Alan. Susan grabbed his arm. We need to go. He blinked, coming back to himself. Yes, sorry. As they hurried toward the exit, the chamber began to change. The walls seemed to breathe faster. The symbols glowed with a faint blue light. Run, Susan shouted. They raced through the tunnel, which now seemed shorter than before. Behind them, a low sound grew, not quite a roar, not quite a song, but something between the two. They burst out onto the Martian surface, gasping despite their oxygen supplies. Seal it, Susan ordered. Use the explosives. Kyle hesitated. Captain, this is the greatest discovery in human history. It's also the most dangerous, William said. Whatever's down there, it wasn't meant to be found. Before they could decide, the ground trembled. Far away across the Martian landscape, other geometric patterns began to glow. It's too late, Alan whispered. We've already awakened it. Back. At the base, the team gathered in stunned silence. On the screens around them, reports came in from Earth. Strange structures glowing in the depths of oceans. Ancient sites around the world emitting unusual energy patterns. People reporting the same dream worldwide. What have we done? Laura asked. Alan stared at his hands, which trembled slightly. We didn't start this, he said. Humans have been awakening these things since the beginning. Every cave painting, every ancient temple, every scientific breakthrough, they've all been leading to this moment. Susan looked at him sharply. What are you saying? I'm saying we were meant to find this, Alan replied. We're part of something that began long before us. And now, we've taken the next step. Outside, the Martian wind howled, carrying the dust in strange, spiraling patterns. Patterns that matched exactly the symbols in the chamber below. The nightmares were awakening, and humanity had turned the key. Dr. Alan Foster couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the strange patterns from the Martian chamber. He sat up in his small room at the United Nations Space Coalition headquarters and rubbed his tired eyes. On his desk, ancient, human artifacts were spread out. Cave paintings, clay tablets, and photographs of monuments from around the world. 6 weeks had passed since their discovery on Mars. The team had been brought back to Earth immediately. Their findings were now classified at the highest level. Someone knocked on his door. It was Dr. William Carter carrying more files. I found something, William said as he entered. He placed a folder on the desk. Inside were photos of ancient cave paintings from France dated to be over 30,000 years old. Look familiar? Alan's breath caught. The swirling patterns matched exactly what they had seen on Mars. This can't be a coincidence, Alan said. It's not, William replied. I've been going through historical records. The patterns appear throughout human history, always at moments of great change. They spread out the materials. Ancient Sumerian tablets showed the same spiraling shapes. Egyptian hieroglyphs contained hidden versions of the pattern. Even Leonardo da Vinci had drawn them in the corners of his notebooks. It's always been there, Alan whispered, hidden in plain sight. Laura Peterson joined them an hour later, bringing coffee and more evidence. She had been studying biological samples from the Mars site. Whatever was in that chamber, she said, it's not just an isolated case. I've found trace elements matching our samples in meteorites that hit Earth thousands of years ago. Alan connected the dots. So these entities, whatever they are, they've been coming here throughout our history. And each time they arrive, William added, human civilization makes a sudden leap forward. They worked through the night, building a timeline. The pattern was undeniable. Major advances in human development coincided with these cosmic visitations. Around sunrise, Captain Susan Wright arrived with Kyle Bennett. Their faces were grim. You need to see this, Susan said, turning on the television. The news showed strange happenings around the world. In the Gobi Desert, An ancient structure had emerged from the sand overnight. At Stonehenge, the stones were vibrating at a frequency that could be felt miles away. In the Amazon rainforest, tribal shamans reported the jungle itself was reshaping, around a pattern identical to what they found on Mars. "It's happening everywhere," Kyle said. "And it started the moment we activated that chamber." Alan stared at the footage. "No, it's been happening for thousands of years. We just completed something that began long ago." Laura's phone rang. It was her colleague from the biology lab. "The samples," she said after hanging up. "They're growing." At the secure laboratory, they stood around a sealed container. Inside, the tiny organic fragments from Mars had expanded into complex shifting structures. "It's like they're building something," Laura explained. "The cellular activity is unlike anything we've ever seen. They're not just reproducing, they're following a pattern." William studied the growth. "The same pattern from the cave paintings from the Martian chamber. It's some kind of blueprint." That afternoon, they were called to an emergency meeting with the highest levels of government. Scientists, military leaders, and intelligence officials from around the world gathered. General Richard Harris addressed the room. "As of 600 hours this morning, we have confirmed 17 sites globally exhibiting the same phenomenon. Ancient structures are activating. People near these sites report shared dreams and unusual mental abilities." He showed satellite images of each location. The patterns were unmistakable. They formed a network across Earth's surface. "We believe," he continued, "that what Dr. Foster's team found on Mars was just one piece of something much larger." Alan stood up. "Sir, we need to share what we've learned about the historical connection. These entities have been influencing human development for thousands of years." He explained their theory. "At key moments in human history, contact with these cosmic entities had accelerated our progress. The first use of tools, the discovery of fire, the development of language, and agriculture, all coincided with evidence of these patterns appearing in human art and architecture. It's almost as if," Alan concluded, "human evolution has been guided by these visitations." The general's face darkened. Guided toward what? No one had an answer. Later that day, Alan and his team were granted access to classified records from throughout history. They found accounts of strange phenomena dating back centuries. A Mongolian expedition in 1242 described finding a structure in the desert that spoke directly to their minds. A notebook from Isaac Newton contained drawings of entities that matched what they saw on Mars, alongside his groundbreaking physics equations. Every major scientific breakthrough, William realized, every evolutionary leap, they all have these connections. Susan looked troubled. "Are you saying we owe all our progress to these things, that we didn't achieve anything on our own?" "No," Alan replied. "I think it's more complex than that. It's like we've been in a dialogue with them without knowing it. They provide something, inspiration, knowledge, genetic changes, and we respond by growing, evolving." Kyle, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "But why? What do they get from us?" The answer came that night, when Alan finally slept. In his dreams, he saw the history of Earth from the perspective of the cosmic entities. He saw them arriving billions of years ago, seeding the planet with the building blocks of life. He watched as they guided simple organisms toward greater complexity and, eventually, consciousness. He woke with a gasp, understanding flooding through him. He called the team immediately. "They're not separate from us," he said when they gathered. "They're part of us. Our consciousness, our creativity, our drive to explore. It all comes from them. We're their children in a way." "That doesn't explain why they're waking up now," Susan pointed out. "I think," Alan said slowly, "we've reached some kind of threshold. Our technology, our understanding of the universe, we've advanced enough that the next stage can begin." As if confirming his words, reports came in from the sites worldwide. The structures were changing, growing, becoming more complex, and people nearby were changing too. New abilities were emerging, heightened intuition, shared consciousness, even manipulation of physical matter through thought alone. Evolution is accelerating, Laura whispered. William looked out the window at the night sky. The question is, evolution into what? Far above, the stars seemed to pulse with new meaning. The cosmic nightmares were awakening, and humanity was awakening with them. The next chapter in Earth's history had begun, written in a language as old as the universe itself. 6 months passed since the discovery on Mars. The world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The 5 major sites on Earth, the Mariana Trench, Siberian Wilderness, Antarctic Ice Shelf, Sahara Desert, and Amazon Rainforest, had developed into what scientists now called nexus points. Strange structures grew there, defying the laws of physics and biology. Dr. Alan Foster stood at the edge of the Antarctic site, watching the impossible architecture rise from the ice. The structure looked like coral made of dark glass growing upward in spiraling patterns. It had risen 300 feet in the last week alone. "It's beautiful in a terrifying way," said Dr. Olivia Martinez, the quantum physicist who had joined their team. Her breath frosted in the bitter cold. "Any progress understanding the energy patterns?" Alan asked. Olivia shook her head. "They don't follow any rules we understand. It's like they're bleeding through from another dimension entirely." Behind them, a transport helicopter landed on the temporary base. Captain Susan Wright emerged, followed by Frank Daniels, a former Special Forces operator who had shown unusual sensitivity to the phenomena. "The other sites are advancing at the same rate," Susan reported, "and the effects on nearby populations are intensifying." The effects had been the most surprising development. People living within 100 miles of each nexus point had begun experiencing changes. At first, it was shared dreams, visions of vast entities moving through space. Then came the headaches, followed by new abilities. Some could sense others' emotions. Others could move small objects with their minds. A few claimed to see patterns in random events predicting future occurrences with impossible accuracy. "The government containment efforts aren't working," Frank said. His eyes had changed color in the past month from brown to a deep violet. "People are slipping through the cordons, forming communities around the sites. They say they're being called." Alan wasn't surprised. He felt the pull himself, a constant tug at the back of his mind urging him closer to the structure. Dr. Diana Ross joined them, carrying her latest research. As an expert in comparative mythology, she had been studying ancient texts that might reference similar events in the past. "Every culture has stories about the end of an age and the beginning of a new one," Diana explained. "The Norse had Ragnarok, the Hindus have the cycle of yugas, the Maya had their calendar cycles. I think they were describing this, a fundamental shift in how consciousness interacts with reality." They gathered in the main research tent, surrounded by monitors showing data from all 5 sites. The structures were growing in perfect synchronization, despite being thousands of miles apart. "The latest brain scans from affected individuals show something fascinating," Laura Peterson said, displaying the results. "Their neural patterns are beginning to synchronize not just with each other but with the energy pulses from the structures." William Carter had been translating symbols that appeared on the growing structures. "They're not just random designs," he said. "They're a language, the same one we found on Mars. But it's evolving, becoming more complex as the structures grow." Kyle Bennett had been studying the physical properties of the material. "Whatever this stuff is, it's rewriting the rules of matter at a quantum level. It can change density, transparency, even its position in space without moving through the intervening distance." Outside, the Antarctic wind howled. The structure seemed to respond, vibrating in harmony with the sound. "We need to face facts," Susan said firmly. "This is beyond our control now. We need to focus on understanding it and preparing people for whatever comes next." Alan nodded. "I've been having more dreams, clearer ones." He hesitated. "I think these entities, they're not just awakening. They're trying to communicate." "Communicate what?" Frank asked. "That's what I can't figure out. It's like trying to understand whale song or the dance of bees when you've never seen a whale or a bee before." That night, as Alan slept in his small room at the base, the dreams came again. But this time they were different. Instead of chaotic visions, he saw a clear sequence of events. He saw Earth as it was billions of years ago when life was just beginning. He watched as massive entities, the cosmic nightmares, arrived from the depths of space. They weren't solid creatures, but vast fields of energy and consciousness. They seeded the planet with patterns that would eventually guide the evolution of life toward greater complexity and awareness. In his dream, Alan understood their purpose. They were gardeners of consciousness, and Earth was one of many gardens across the cosmos. Humanity wasn't their first attempt, but it was their most successful one. He woke with a gasp, his room illuminated by a strange blue light. Outside, the structure was glowing, pulsing like a heartbeat. He dressed quickly and ran outside. The entire team was already there, staring in awe. "It's happening at all 5 sites," Susan said, looking at her tablet, synchronized pulses growing stronger. As they watched, the air around the structure began to shimmer. Reality itself seemed to thin, like fabric stretched too tight. "The barrier between dimensions is weakening," Olivia whispered. "Whatever's on the other side is coming through." The shimmering air began to take shape. Not a solid form, but something fluid and ever-changing. It stretched outward from the structure, reaching toward them. Frank stepped forward, drawn by some irresistible force. "I can hear them," he said, his voice distant. "They're saying, 'We're ready.'" Before anyone could stop him, Frank touched the shimmering air. Light exploded outward, blinding them all. When Alan could see again, Frank was standing there, but different. His eyes glowed with the same blue light as the structure, and his skin seemed to ripple with patterns beneath the surface. "Frank?" Susan said cautiously, her hand moving toward her weapon. When Frank spoke, his voice had a strange echo. "I am still here, but I am also more now." He looked at his hands with wonder. "They have been waiting so long for us to be ready." "Ready for what?" Alan asked. "To join with them, to become what we were always meant to be." Frank looked at each of them. "Humanity has been their project from the beginning. They shaped us, guided our evolution, waited for us to develop the right kind of consciousness." "For what purpose?" Diana asked. "Because they cannot change or grow on their own. They are ancient, powerful, but static. We have something they need: creativity, emotion, free will. And they have what we need: understanding of the cosmos, mastery of reality itself." All around the world, at each nexus point, the same thing was happening. The barriers between dimensions were breaking down. People were changing, their consciousness expanding beyond human limits. Alan felt the presence in his mind growing stronger, not forcing its way in, but waiting, offering. "We have a choice," he realized. "We can resist and remain as we are, or we can embrace this change and become something new." Susan looked troubled. "But what if we lose ourselves in the process? What if humanity is erased by these things?" Frank smiled, the patterns beneath his skin flowing like liquid light. "That's the beauty of it. They need what makes us human: our art, our music, our love, our struggles. These are the things they cannot create on their own. In joining with us, they become more like us, even as we become more like them." As the sun rose over the Antarctic ice, the shimmering air expanded, reaching toward each of them with tendrils of light. The choice was before them, before all of humanity: to remain as they were, or to step into a new phase of existence. One that had been planned since the first humans looked up at the stars and wondered what might be looking back. The world governments reacted with fear. 3 weeks after Frank Daniels transformed at the Antarctic site, military forces surrounded all 5 nexus points. Fighter jets circled overhead while tanks and artillery positioned themselves at the perimeter. Scientists in protective suits took readings from a safe distance. Alan Foster watched the military build up from inside the research base. He had refused to leave, along with Olivia Martinez, William Carter, and Laura Peterson. They had dedicated themselves to understanding what was happening, not fighting it. "They're making a terrible mistake," Olivia said, looking at the forces gathering outside. "You can't bomb your way out of a fundamental change in reality." Fear makes people do foolish things, William replied. He hadn't slept in days, working non-stop to translate the growing language of symbols that covered the structure. Laura checked the latest readings from their instruments. The energy levels are still rising. Whatever's happening, it's accelerating. Alan stared at the structure, now towering nearly 1,000 feet into the sky. Its surface rippled like dark water, reflecting light in ways that hurt the eyes. Frank, Daniels had disappeared into it 2 days ago, saying he needed to prepare the way. We need to go in, Alan said suddenly. The others looked at him in shock. Into the structure? Laura asked. We have no idea what that would do to us. Frank went in and came back changed but still himself, Alan pointed out. And I've been having more dreams. There's something inside. A kind of library or repository of knowledge. If we can access it, we might understand enough to prevent this military action. William set down his notes. The translation suggests the same thing. There's a central chamber that contains the collected wisdom of the entities, a place where our minds can interface with theirs. It's too dangerous, Olivia argued. We've seen how people change when they get too close. More dangerous than letting them bomb these sites? Alan asked. Whatever these entities are, they're connected to humanity at a fundamental level. Attacking them might destroy us all. They debated through the night. By morning, Alan had convinced them. They would enter the structure together, hoping to find answers before the military took action. They slipped out of the base during a shift change, using the cover of a snowstorm to approach the structure undetected. Up close, it hummed with energy they could feel in their bones. There's an opening, Laura said, pointing to a section that seemed to pulse rhythmically. They approached cautiously. The opening wasn't exactly a door, more like a thin spot in reality, where the structure's material phased in and out of existence. On 3, Alan said, taking their hands. 1, 2, 3. They stepped through together. Inside was nothing, like they expected. The space expanded impossibly in all directions. What looked like a solid structure from outside was actually a vast network of crystalline formations, glowing with internal light. They floated weightlessly among the formations, as if gravity had been suspended. It's beautiful, Olivia whispered, her voice sounding strange in the alien atmosphere. The crystals around them pulsed in response to her words. Images formed within them, stars being born, galaxies colliding, life evolving across countless worlds. It's showing us the cosmos, William realized. The history of everything. They floated deeper into the structure, drawn to a central chamber where the crystals grew more dense and complex. Here, the images changed, showing Earth specifically. They watched the planet form from cosmic dust, saw the first microbes emerge, in ancient oceans witnessed the rise and fall of dinosaurs, and finally, the appearance of early humans. Look, Laura pointed to a crystal showing early humans discovering fire. Shadowy forms hovered nearby, the cosmic entities guiding the discovery. The crystals continued their story, showing how the entities had influenced human development throughout history, not controlling it, but nudging it in certain directions, helping humans solve problems just beyond their current abilities. They've been teaching us, Alan said, like parents helping children learn to walk. But why? Olivia asked. What do they gain? The answer came as they reached the very center of the chamber. Here, a massive crystal formation pulsed with intense light. As they approached, it reacted to their presence, reshaping itself to form a kind of interface. Frank Daniels appeared before them, or something that had once been Frank. His form was now composed of the same crystalline material as the structure, though his features remained recognizable. You came, he said, his voice resonating through the crystal around them. I hoped you would. What are you now, Frank? Laura asked. I am still myself, but connected to something larger. His eyes glowed with inner light. The entities showed me everything. Their history, their purpose, why they need us. He gestured, and the crystals around them formed new images, vast beings of pure energy, ancient beyond comprehension, traveling through the void between galaxies. They are the precursors, Frank explained, among the first conscious beings in our universe. They evolved billions of years ago, reaching heights of knowledge and power we can barely imagine. But they reached a limit. The crystals showed the entities becoming stagnant, unchanging despite their vast intelligence. They discovered that consciousness itself has limits when it evolves only one way. They needed something different. Minds that evolved through struggle, through emotions, through bodies that experienced the physical world. Us, William said. They needed us. Frank nodded. They seeded countless worlds with the potential for life, then guided that life toward consciousness. Earth was just one garden among many, but one of their most successful. And now, Alan asked, what happens now that we've reached this point? Now we join with them, as they've always intended, not to be absorbed or controlled, but to form something new, a blending of their cosmic awareness with our creativity and emotion. Olivia looked troubled. But what about those who don't want this change? Shouldn't people have a choice? Frank's expression grew sad. That's why I needed you to come here. The military forces are preparing to strike all 5 sites simultaneously. They don't understand that these structures aren't separate entities. They're extensions of humanity's own evolution. The crystals showed missiles being loaded, targeting systems locking on. If they attack, it won't stop what's happening. It will only make the transition more chaotic, more painful for everyone. Alan felt a presence in his mind, vast, ancient, but somehow familiar. Not invading his thoughts, but offering connection. Can we stop them? He asked. Not alone, Frank replied. But if you're willing to connect more deeply with the precursors, we might be able to show the world what's really happening. The 4 scientists looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. Will we still be ourselves? Laura asked. You will be more than you are now, Frank said. But your core self, your memories, your identity, those remain. They are what make you valuable to the precursors. Alan reached out and touched the central crystal. I'm ready. The others followed, each placing a hand on the glowing formation. Light enveloped them and knowledge flooded into their minds. Billions of years of cosmic history, the nature of reality itself, the purpose behind human evolution. They understood at last. The cosmic nightmares weren't nightmares at all. They were midwives to a new kind of existence, one where human consciousness could expand beyond the limits of flesh, while still retaining what made humanity unique. As missiles launched toward the 5 sites around the world, Alan and his friends, now something more than human, reached out with their expanded minds. Every screen on Earth, every phone and computer, suddenly showed the same image. The true history of humanity's relationship with the cosmic entities, the purpose behind their awakening, and the potential future that awaited. In that moment, humanity faced its greatest choice, to embrace a new phase of existence or to cling to old limitations. And in living rooms and offices around the world, millions of minds began to understand what had been hidden in plain sight since the beginning of human history. The missiles never reached their targets. As they approached the 5 structures around the world, reality itself seemed to bend around them. They disappeared into ripples of distorted space, harmlessly absorbed by the growing nexus points. 3 days had passed since Alan Foster and his team had connected with the precursors. In those 3 days, the world had changed more than it had in the previous 1,000 years. The message they had broadcast reached everyone on Earth simultaneously. People saw the truth. Humanity's long relationship with the cosmic entities, the guided evolution, and the potential future that awaited. Some reacted with fear, others with wonder, but no one could deny what they had seen. Alan stood at the edge of what had once been the Antarctic research base. His body appeared mostly human, but faint patterns of light moved beneath his skin. His mind had expanded beyond what he had ever thought possible. Susan Wright approached him. She had been among the military forces opposing the change, but after seeing the broadcast, she had entered the structure herself. The last military blockades are coming down, she said. Her eyes now shimmered with the same inner light as Alan's. Most governments have accepted that this can't be stopped. Not stopped, Alan corrected gently. Joined. All around the world, people were making their choice. Nearly a third of humanity had already approached the expanding structures, accepting the offered connection with the precursors. Others watched and waited, uncertain but no longer hostile. What about those who refuse? Susan asked. Those who want to remain fully human? They will, Alan assured her. The precursors understand choice. Those who wish to remain unchanged can do so. The integration will take generations to complete, allowing time for understanding to grow. The Antarctic structure had now merged with the ice shelf itself, transforming the frozen landscape into a gleaming city of crystal and light. Similar transformations were happening at the other nexus points. New kinds of habitats emerging that could support both unchanged humans and those who had connected with the precursors. Dr. Olivia Martinez joined them, accompanied by several other scientists who had recently arrived from around the world. Their bodies varied in their degree of transformation, some showing only faint signs of change, while others were nearly as crystalline as Frank had become. The physics we're discovering is beyond anything we imagined, Olivia said excitedly. The precursors understand reality at a level we never could have reached on our own. Space, time, matter. They're all more fluid than we thought. William Carter was working with linguists to develop a new language that could express concepts beyond human experience while still retaining human emotional nuances. Laura Peterson led a team studying how the human body was adapting to the connection, ensuring that the changes were beneficial rather than harmful. What happens next? Susan asked, looking out at the transformed landscape. Alan smiled. We build bridges. In the months that followed, those who had connected with the precursors began constructing what they called bridge spaces, environments where transformed and untransformed humans could interact and share knowledge. The technology that emerged from these collaborations solved problems that had plagued humanity for centuries. Clean energy sources appeared, drawing power directly from the quantum fabric of reality. Medical advances eliminated most diseases and extended human lifespan dramatically. Environmental damage began to reverse as new methods of restoration were implemented. Yet the most profound changes were not technological, but conceptual. Human consciousness itself was expanding, gaining new ways of perceiving and understanding the universe. 1 year after the first contact on Mars, Alan Foster stood on a platform overlooking one of the bridge cities that had grown around the Amazon nexus point. The lush jungle had integrated with the crystalline structures, creating a habitat that pulsed with both biological and cosmic energy. Frank Daniels materialized beside him, his form now almost entirely energy rather than matter. The precursors are pleased, he said. The integration is proceeding better than they hoped. We're stubborn, Alan replied with a smile. Humans don't transform easily, but we adapt when we see the benefits. That's why they chose your species, Frank said. Out of all the worlds they seeded, humans had the right balance of resistance and acceptance. You question everything, yet remain open to new possibilities. Below them, a group of children played in a garden where plants responded to their thoughts, growing and changing shape to match their imagination. Some of the children showed signs of transformation, while others remained fully human. They played together without distinction. The Mars site is ready, Frank announced. The first expedition to the stars will leave next month. The precursors had revealed technology that allowed travel between stars without the limitations of light speed. Humanity was about to take its first steps into the wider cosmos, not as explorers but as returning children, guided by the knowledge of the precursors. And what will we find out there? Alan asked, though he already knew the answer from his expanded consciousness. Other gardens, Frank replied. Other species approaching their own awakening moments, some ahead of humanity, some behind. All part of the same project, the cultivation of consciousness throughout the universe. Alan felt the vast network of minds that he was now connected to. Millions of humans who had joined with the precursors, and beyond them, the ancient entities themselves, their thoughts moving on scales that would have been incomprehensible to him before. He remembered the fear he had felt when they first discovered the chamber on Mars, how they had seen these entities as nightmares. Now he understood that the nightmares had been merely the shadow of something wonderful, a potential future too vast for human minds to grasp all at once. A small group approached the platform, scientists and government officials who had remained, fully human yet worked closely with the transformed. Among them was a young woman who reminded Alan of himself when he first joined the Mars expedition, curious, cautious, but open to discovery. "Dr. Foster," she said, "I have questions about the integration process." Alan smiled. The questions never stopped, which was exactly as it should be. Humanity's curiosity, its endless questioning, was the very quality that had made it valuable to the precursors. In joining with them, humans hadn't lost their nature but expanded it, becoming more fully themselves while also becoming something new. "Ask," he said. "That's how it begins." As the sun set over the transformed Amazon, lights began to glow within, the crystalline structures matching the emerging stars above. On Mars, the original chamber had expanded into a spaceport, ready to launch humanity's first true interstellar vessel. In orbit, satellites of human and precursor design monitored the ongoing transformation of Earth, ensuring that the planet itself remained healthy during the transition. The cosmic nightmares humanity had feared were revealed as cosmic dreams. Instead, ancient patterns of possibility finally taking form after billions of years of patient cultivation. And at the center of it all was the uniquely human capacity for growth, for adaptation, for embracing the unknown while still remaining. True to themselves, the awakening had only just begun.